Okay, welcome, bienvenidos. I am Remberto Rodriguez with the National Center for Smart Growth at the University. Thrilled to be coordinating these 12 case studies with the Small Business Anti-Displacement Network, accompanying folks literally from throughout the world to get to what works. You can find a list of all 12 organizations doing these case studies at a link from the SBAN website. Now, the case studies this project began this past summer and will be completed early next fall. When completed, these case studies will be available to all, providing current and timely examples of what tools and strategies work to abate the displacement of small businesses. This session in particular that we're about to experience it spotlights 4 of these organizations that are preparing the case studies. And I'll mention them, and we'll see them in a bit in the video, and we'll get to chat with them afterwards. San Francisco Heritage and University of Oregon Historic Preservation Program. The Institut de Recherche et d'Information Socioeconomique, the Institute of Information and Socioeconomics in Montreal, Canada. The Purple Line Corridor Coalition in suburban Washington, D.C. in the state of Maryland, and the Puerto Rican Cultural Center in Chicago. They will share details of the tools and strategies they're documenting in their community. And very critical, how others will be able to replicate their work. We'll be showing a video shortly. The video presents all 4 organizations consecutively. After the video, we'll have representatives from all 4 organizations with us for a question and answer session. Please have your questions ready, and we will be able to put them in the chat. And without further ado, let's watch and listen to what they have to say.
Hi, my name is Carrie Young, and I am the Communications and Programs Manager at San Francisco Heritage.
Okay, welcome, bienvenidos. I am Remberto Rodriguez.
Of Oregon's Historic Preservation Program. Our case study will focus on cultural heritage. Hi, my name is Carrie Young, and I am the Communications and Programs Manager at San Francisco Heritage. And together with the University of Oregon's Historic Preservation Program, our case study will focus on cultural heritage strategies for preventing displacement of small businesses in San Francisco. And so for generations, San Francisco has been home to a thriving collection of local businesses, nonprofits, and traditions that reflect the city's history, culture, and its people. These places have the power to bring people together, provide a sense of community with the past, and lend the city a rich and layered identity. Historically, such enclaves formed out of necessity as restrictive covenants and outright segregation prevented people of color from living in certain areas. And even after restrictive covenants were banned, new arrivals to the city chose to live in close proximity to friends and family, where they could purchase or sell culturally specific products and access goods and services in their native language. The inherent benefits of maintaining San Francisco's cultural diversity in civic life, in tourism, and economic stability warrant prioritization and conservation through a sustained commitment by the city and other entities like San Francisco Heritage. San Francisco is a majority-minority city, with people of color accounting for more than 50% of the city's total population. Asians represent the largest minority group, followed by Latinos. And as you can see in this data from the 2020 census, these minority groups have increased over the past 10 years, while the percentage of Black residents has decreased. Displacement continues to happen in historic minority enclaves, despite some of these increases in populations citywide. And for example, gentrification has chipped away at the Latino population of the city's Mission District. And last year, the Latino population saw the largest decrease here than in any San Francisco neighborhood. And despite San Francisco being home to some of the biggest names in retail and tech, starting in 2004, San Francisco has rejected chain stores through a series of laws and ballot initiatives. after residents fought the encroachment of large corporations into neighborhood retail districts. Today, it's the largest city in the country to ban chains in some zones and require special permits in others. However, despite efforts like these to support the small businesses that contribute to the city's unique character, these businesses continue to face a complex set of challenges. San Francisco is one of the most expensive cities in the nation, with development pressures threatening the physical historic fabric of neighborhoods and leading to widespread evictions of longtime legacy businesses and cultural communities that have been here for generations. We recognize that traditional designation processes for historic preservation were not effective in the face of rapidly escalating commercial property values, as landmarking a building, for example, does not protect against constant rent increases. Furthermore, the existing preservation tools rely on a building retaining the, quote, integrity of its original design to be eligible, while marginalized communities often inherit structures that have been significantly altered over time. San Francisco's highly publicized housing crisis is a major threat to cultural heritage assets, as the city's residents are the primary owners, employees, sponsors, and patrons of cultural activities. And aside from residential displacement, a side effect of San Francisco's widespread economic pressures is the alarming loss of heritage businesses, nonprofits, and other arts and cultural institutions. These assets are particularly vulnerable to eviction and/or displacement due to skyrocketing rents, and the pandemic has only accelerated this process despite government assistance. And so our case study strategy uses two main programs to help populations facing displacement through gentrification stay in place: San Francisco's Legacy Business Registry program and its Cultural Districts program. These two tools specifically address the need for people-focused preservation in recognition of how historic resources like our longtime businesses and rich heritage and cultural communities contribute positively in making San Francisco a rich, vibrant, and unique place. Working with the city of San Francisco Heritage has put together the working principles and evaluation criteria for nominations to these programs, which are officially administered by city agencies. The Legacy Business Registry had its origins in San Francisco's Legacy Bars and Restaurants program, which was primarily conceived as an education program and awareness campaign. We were then approached by former city supervisor David Campos to create legislation for the first Legacy Business Registry in the country. Unlike other traditional historic designation programs, we felt it was important for the program to have a low bar to entry, to be more inclusive and reflect the diverse array of businesses in the city, and that it be incentive-based rather than regulatory. And in the early 2010s, SF Heritage responded to concerns about a lack of protection of sites and practices related to marginalized populations by gathering a number of arts organizations experiencing the threat of displacement for a community summit entitled Sustaining San Francisco's Living History, which addressed concerns of the loss of cultural and social heritage assets. This was followed by the publishing of an extensive report proposing a series of strategies for stabilizing and revitalizing San Francisco's cultural heritage assets for communities, nonprofits, small businesses, festivals, foundations, and government agencies. This effort has resulted in new city policies like the Cultural Districts program, which provides effective tools for preserving both the physical fabric and the living traditions of BIPOC and queer communities facing displacement in San Francisco. And importantly, each cultural district is able to define the criteria and process for identifying cultural resources and implementing cultural preservation. And so overall, it's critical that individual communities serve agents for developing programs that recognize and support their own cultural heritage assets. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. My name is Colin Pratt, and it's a pleasure to be here with you discussing about the challenges that face Montreal Chinatown. I am a researcher based in Montreal, working for the Institut de Recherche and Socio-Economic Information. Our research focuses on the displacement issues facing Chinatown in Montreal. So, like most Chinatowns in North America, Montreal Chinatown was founded at the turn of the 20th century in a context of exclusion and marginalization of the Chinese community. The size of Chinatown was reduced throughout the 20th century as a result of large-scale real estate projects. For example, between 1950 and 1980, the neighborhood lost about two-thirds of its area. Today, the neighborhood is wedged between the business district, the old port, and the entertainment district. The neighborhood has about 900 inhabitants, about half of whom belong to a visible minority, and 40% of them speaking a Chinese language as a mother tongue. The business profile is quite impressive. It counts about 170 businesses have been identified, the vast majority of which are family owned. 63 are restaurants and 43 are in the service sector, either hairdressing, food services, or medical. The challenges are multiple for Montreal Chinatown. Due to its central location in the city of Montreal, the neighborhood is subject to high real estate speculation, which threatens the existence of affordable commercial and residential space. Also, in relation to the issue of commercial vitality, the vacancy rate for commercial space is 17%, compared to an average of 10% for the main commercial streets of Montreal. During the COVID, the community experienced lots of hate, which exacerbated the already immense impact of the confinements on the neighborhood's small businesses. And on the subject of zoning changes, I'll come back to this in a moment, but the district is currently in the process of adopting a lowering of building heights. So the history of that start back to 2019, where members of the community came together to advocate for two changes. First, zoning and building heights, and second, the obtaining of heritage designation for the neighborhood. This strategy aimed to freeze real estate development in the neighborhood in a context where more and more condo towers were being built. In January 2022, 3 years later, the heart of the neighborhood, Montreal Chinatown, received a heritage status, which was a victory. And now, in the current moment, a draft bylaw lowering building heights is about to be adopted. So the purpose of this research intervenes in this context where members of the community to participate to this anti-displacement project in order to document the process that led to the zoning changes and the heritage designation of Montreal's Chinatown. Also, the purpose of this research is to observe how these changes can be effective tools in the fight against displacement. This research finally will bring to the forefront issues that many North American Chinatown faces. Thank you very much, and it will be a pleasure to discuss more about this project and other projects in the question period. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Sheila Somashekar. I'm director of the Purple Line Corridor Coalition, which is based in the Maryland suburbs of DC. The Purple Line Corridor Coalition, or the PLCC, is an equitable development collaborative that's focused on harnessing the greatest benefits of a new transit route. The PLCC is housed at the University of Maryland's National Center for Smart Growth, but we are a partnership-based effort that's intended to have a multifaceted approach to equitable development along this new transit route. So our case study is called Efforts to Prevent Small Business Displacement in 6 Gentrifying Neighborhoods Along the Purple Line Light Rail Corridor in Maryland, USA. So just to give you a sense of where we work, so we are, again, based in the Maryland suburbs of DC. And if you look at this map on the left, this is the DC metro system with the inclusion of the future Purple Line. So the metro system was designed basically to get people from the suburbs into the city center and to move around the city center efficiently. But as those legs of the metro system kind of spider out from the center, it leaves a number of areas without transit coverage, without rail coverage in particular. And so the Purple Line was conceived of in order to fill some of those gaps. It's the first east-west rail connector that cuts through economic centers. It cuts through historically disinvested communities of color, and it's under construction now, expected to be completed in 2026. And there are a lot of changes that are expected in the areas just beyond the tracks as well, in the areas, a half mile to a mile beyond the Purple Line, in terms of investment, in terms of gentrification and change. So the PLCC's work is really focused on 6 neighborhoods, 6 commercial districts along the line, where you have a lot of business owners of color, patrons and workers of color, and where the businesses have the most to gain or lose from the changes that the Purple Line will bring. And so our case study is really looking at efforts along the Purple Line to prevent displacement, some of which are facilitated by PLCC, some of them are supported by PLCC, but we're painting sort of a picture of what's happening along the corridor. Next slide. Just in terms of who lives in the corridor, it's extremely diverse. If you look at the western end of the corridor, for example, in the Bethesda Chevy Chase area, it's majority white. Median household income is close to $140,000 a year. But as you move east into the International Corridor and Riverdale, New Carrollton, for example, it's majority Latino, immigrant, Black neighborhoods, and the household median income is somewhere in the 60,000s. And so our work as a coalition, as PLCC, is corridor-wide and more comprehensive than the small business displacement efforts. There's a robust affordable housing effort. There's a workforce development and placemaking efforts. And all of that, is the backdrop for the small business anti-displacement work as well, which is focused again on a narrower set of communities along the line. So the businesses themselves along the corridor, many of them are legacy businesses that have been around for 10, 20, 30 years and serve, as anchors in their communities, incredible food and goods and services that are really critical to the identity of communities. And many of them are tucked away in strip malls, aging strip malls. And there have been efforts to support the businesses individually, as well as the commercial districts themselves. And this is, some of the images on the right are murals and streeteries and other efforts that have been underway for a number of years, even before PLCC was in the picture, to really support the commercial districts to thrive and to support the businesses as a result. So the core challenges that we are dealing with in the Purple Line Corridor are a few. There's rising rents. With the Purple Line coming through, people are expecting growth and change and investment, and rising rents are an issue. Redevelopment pressures and uncertainty. Again, there are a lot of strip malls, a lot of one-story strip malls along the corridor. A lot of aging, and there's some expectation and anticipation of redevelopment, but nobody really knows what that's going to look like quite yet. And the small businesses are not totally prepared for how to respond to that, and sometimes don't have even the power to be informed of what the owner's plans are. So dealing with that. Construction disruption is a huge issue. The image on the right gives you just a picture of that, with an expected completion date of 2026. Some of the businesses are struggling with obstructed entrances and difficulties with driving on the roads in front of them, and so they're really struggling with that. COVID is an issue, as we know, for businesses nationally, internationally, and the businesses in the corridor are still dealing with that. Adapting to market changes. So again, the changes are coming. People will be moving into the corridor. Investment is going to be happening. How do you adapt to that to remain in the community? And related to that, to harnessing the opportunity. How do you position your business to really take advantage of the growth and change that's coming, and the new customers and new transit riders that could be your new customer base? In terms of emerging strategies and tools, our case study looks at 4. The first is technical assistance, which is really one-on-one services provided to the businesses. Some of our partners have been doing this for some years, and so we've been, as a coalition, supporting and trying to raise and align funds for partners to do more, helping to fill gaps with specialized consulting capacity, for example, interior design and marketing support to the businesses, supporting coordination of technical assistance. And, evaluating that can be tough because we're really looking at a long game. Construction disruption, addressing that. We're really honing in on construction disruption grants that were championed by a local legislator, and advocacy to ensure that money was committed to at the state level to support businesses who are affected by construction disruption. We kind of tell the story of that effort and how well the money is being deployed to the businesses. Strong places, strong businesses. So looking at the commercial districts, we've been looking at place-based management models like Main Streets and how you anchor commercial district efforts with real organizational and human capacity. Placemaking, social media to lift up all the businesses in a commercial district are some of the things we're exploring there. And this has been, some of it is partner-led, some of it is led by the coalition. And then collaboration, which is the bread and butter of what PLCC does, really looking at how the collaboration works, and how we were looking to support the leadership of local businesses, local business associations, and local organizations that are supporting small businesses and these change strategies. Thank you so much, and I will welcome questions.
My name is Ibis Garcia. I am an associate professor at Texas A&M University, and I have been working for more than a decade in partnership with the Puerto Rico Center in Chicago, which has been essential in creating in Illinois a state bill that allows for the designation of cultural districts across the state. This designation is critical to slowing commercial gentrification in the Humboldt Park area, where most Puerto Ricans live in Chicago. Puerto Ricans have been slowly moving west, as you can see in this map, from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s, and until today. Paseo Boricua has 23 eateries, food trucks, and restaurants in total, and 14 are Puerto Rican, as well as about 90 commercial properties, including grocery stores, barber shops, and nonprofits, owned by many people, but the majority are of Puerto Rican descent. The state-designated cultural district was created to especially address some core challenges of places that, number one, have been historically impacted and are currently at risk of losing their cultural identity because of gentrification and displacement, or were more recently affected by the COVID-19 pandemic as well. And two, places that can demonstrate a history of economic disinvestment. This case study will review the behind-the-scenes work to pass the bill using archival documentation of the legislation SB 1833 process, including meetings and discussions. And this study will review key figures, how the legislation came into being, what were some of the barriers encountered, what the legislation tries to accomplish, and how, and some future steps and mechanisms for implementation. Some emerging strategies and tools within the state designated cultural district is like 1, a business incubator and support hub, 2, a small business loan called Fuerza Fund, and 3, mixed-use property acquisition, so we can transition the business from the incubator and also provide affordable housing opportunities so people that own businesses can stay in place. This study will provide other communities with information on how to develop and find the political will to pass a similar legislation. Here we will have like a video that outlines visually our case study.
And who doesn't want to just be able to go down the street, walk to a business, get everything that you need, be able to see your neighbors, and contribute to the local economy? How important it is that we don't lose cultural identity in neighborhoods. And unfortunately have seen what uncontrolled gentrification looks like. Displacement, families can't afford to live in neighborhoods that they've been in for decades, and we've got to make sure that we do everything we can to keep supporting the cultural identity of Puerto Rico town.
Be our unique opportunity to begin a vision of community sustainability, a commercial corridor that will attract tourism for our community to maintain historical memory and cultural identity.
The expansion of Huepa Mercado del Pueblo Business Incubator is the very beginning phase of realizing a commercial corridor. This expansion allows for more Puerto Rican-owned and Latino-owned businesses to receive culturally relevant and linguistically sound business training. The Puerto Rican Cultural Center provides wraparound services to incubate entrepreneurs and grow them into their own brick-and-mortar locations.
Allow us to build affordable housing units within that same space. Acquiring property allows us to maintain families and business owners right here in our community.
Excellent. So that our panelists are joining us, and welcome to real life, right? Let me see. I think we have one more panelist. There is Ives. Okay. Well, and we're going to do this fast-paced because we have half an hour to go. Are we on this? Colin, Sheila, Carrie, and Ives?
Hi.
All right. Here we go. Okay. So this is the day past, one day after the elections. So we have practice at sound bites. So I'm going to ask you guys to introduce yourself, but only in a soundbite type way, and name the one tool or strategy for anti-displacement that how you appear in here on the screen. Your simply introduction, simple, and what is the one tool or strategy that you want to brag the most about?
Yes, hi everyone. It's nice to meet you all and share our struggle. Our research institute is working along the Montreal Chinatown community for anti-displacement study and anti-displacement strategies. The one tool that Montreal community is putting forward is the zoning changes, where we want to diminish the height of the building so that land speculation is also diminished and is tackled.
Great, thank you, Colin. So we have Colin, speaking to zoning changes, and then next let's go to Carrie with San Francisco and Oregon historic preservation. Carrie.
Hi, I'm not on the screen yet, but I will introduce myself. My name is Carrie Young, and saying hi from San Francisco. And the anti-displacement tool that I'd like to spotlight, and I am spotlighting today, are two important and fairly new preservation programs, which are the Legacy Business Registry and the Cultural Districts Program here in San Francisco. Both are city-run, and we were lucky enough at San Francisco Heritage to be able to come up with the strategies and tools that are embedded in these programs that were used to create these programs. And essentially, these two programs are filling a much needed gap here in San Francisco to fully recognize the especially intangible cultural heritage of our city, going beyond the tangible, the physical buildings, physical places, for example, to recognize really our city's rich heritage and culture. So that's what our case study will be exploring.
Thank you, Carrie. We're talking now about legacy businesses and cultural districts as means to fight the displacement caused by gentrification. And then let's go to Chicago with Ives. How are you, Ives?
Oh, hello. This is Ives Garcia. I'm an associate professor at Texas A&M University. I have been working for over 12 years with the Puerto Rican Cultural Center in Chicago, Illinois. And we started an initiative to create culturally designated districts at the state level. So it's not only for Puerto Ricans and for creating Puerto Rico Town, but this is a much larger initiative. What is very exciting about the initiative is that specifically the legislation applies to places that have experienced disinvestment, redlining, urban renewal, and now gentrification in order to maintain our communities in place. I look forward towards more discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Iris. Thank you. And again, cultural districts, but here in this case, applicable statewide. And Sheila, here here in the DC area.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sheila Somashekar. I'm director of the Purple Line Corridor Coalition, which is housed at the National Center for Smart Growth at University of Maryland. We are working on anti-displacement efforts along a new under construction light rail project that's cutting through areas that have been underserved by transit historically and where the transit line is expected to bring change. Our case study covers a couple of different tools. One I'm happy to talk about today is really a focus on commercial districts, on strengthening commercial districts through place-based engagement.
Strengthening commercial, strengthening businesses. Excellent, and on the small commercial districts. Okay, now with the four of y'all doing this throughout North America, and we have some folks listening in, and I think the one of the key things that most folks that have tuned in would want to know is if they want to replicate what is working for you and avoid some of the trials and tribulations, what would you suggest? That is, what are the impediments that you have been able to overcome in seeking to do what you're doing? And we'll go in reverse order here. Sheila, what are some of those stumbling blocks that if you're sharing with somebody in another city that's doing a light rail project and you want to make sure to tell them up front, look, no one else is going to tell you about this, but I've been there. this is what you may want to avoid, what would that be?
Sure. So with respect to the commercial district improvements, the idea, the premise of the work is that strong commercial districts support strong businesses and can support the identities of the neighborhoods. Our model really hinges on collaboration and local place-based engagement with a focus on strengthening, for example, local business associations and enhancing capacity kind of at the hyperlocal level for this work. We've taken a multi-pronged approach to that, including supporting, creating new, and when I say we, it's through partnerships. We've created new commercial district social media platforms to draw energy and new interest to the commercial districts themselves. It's a great tool for engaging the businesses themselves. We've drawn on the capacity of the University of Maryland's Architecture School to bring design capacity to some of these efforts, and invested in organizational capacity building and other sorts of support to the districts. In terms of the stumbling blocks, resources, I would say, are the greatest stumbling block. Just having funding across it. Our corridor is a 16-mile corridor to ensure that communities are really prepared for change and that change at the neighborhood scale, with centering the experiences of small businesses and the value that small businesses bring, requires money. So I would say that's the number one thing.
Yeah, collaboration should never be an afterthought, and it ain't cheap. Can't do it on a dime. And great, Carrie, in your work with the preservation, particularly legacy businesses and cultural districts, I can only imagine that there's so many places throughout the United States, North America, and in other parts of the world wanting to follow your lead in making it work. And if you were to advise someone that's getting going on a similar venture, what would you say to look out for? Oh, we got you muted, Carrie.
I think, well, I would say this work and the two programs that we are exploring are city-run programs, right? We are a historic preservation organization here at San Francisco Heritage, and we do a lot of advocacy and education work. However, this was the ultimate goal, to really advocate to city officials and as well as the community to really get these programs established on the city level, and importantly have city support and funding behind them. So there's a significant kind of groundwork that we would recommend to be done, like continuing to advocate for to your local officials to really just help to get the point across about how special legacy businesses are, and the cultural communities that make up these cultural districts, that they are essentially a really important part of our intangible heritage that really makes San Francisco special. And everyone, tourists, for our economy, etc., like they love visiting San Francisco to experience these special parts of our city. But these things really need support and funding from the city, and kind of advocating to local officials continuously is long term, but it's an important part of this work. And I would also say, for example, for legacy businesses, that it was important when establishing this program that there was a low bar to entry, and that it was incentive based rather than regulatory, because in the historic preservation field, for example, there's kind of a knee-jerk reaction to historic designation, and many people think that if you're historically designated, there would be kind of restrictions on property owners' rights, etc. But really wanted to send this clear message when setting up the requirements for becoming a legacy business, that it's really incentive based, rather than regulatory. So that's what I would say.
Incentive-based versus regulatory, groundwork. This is good. This is good. Ives, you also have been are in that world, that space of cultural districts. What do you have to add regarding what caution flags folks need to know before embarking on something like this?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like cautionary flags, but it's more about this like work takes a very long time, and community planning is very important. And at least from the community in Chicago, the Puerto Rican community, there has been like many efforts that have culminated into the state designated cultural district. And the university has also like helped a lot. I mean, like various universities offering like technical assistance. I'm myself a professor. So that what I want to say is that a lot of people are needed, and there's a lot of resources, and it's very important to put all those resources together. And also to build political capital. So at least like in the Puerto Rican community, we believe like the people that have been actually like elected to be able to create this special cultural district designation. It has been people that have come from the grassroots, that have been like involved from this like work from the very beginning. So again, it's about, we talked about collaborations, right? But I don't want to just discard that there's a lot of collaboration in universities, and also in terms of like thinking about politicians, and specifically grow your own in terms of like people that can be in important policy, the decision making. So I think that I will emphasize also the leadership and how you can work with young people to make that and think about it like long term.
Wow, fermenting human capital from the ground up. What a concept, right? And so Colin, in your space, what might you have to add?
Yeah, well, it's so interesting and not surprising that all our strategies are intertwined. Also for Montreal, Chinatown. Well, first of all, like all of the Chinatowns in North America, communities had to fight during the whole 20th century and the 21st century against displacement waves. We could say in Montreal between 1960 and 1980, the Chinatown of Montreal lost 2/3 of its area. So today, what the community is going through is related, and it's used. So it has resilience and political strategies and reflections that can prevent this new wave of gentrification. And the first step was to build strong relation with city councilors, and then to get the heritage designation, the heritage status to show that if the big capital investment in real estate is frozen and is stopped, it doesn't mean that that the district is engaged in a declining trajectory, but to the opposite, it is going to much more living heritage and cultural trajectory, and for that, having good relation with city councilors to show all the rich history and rich cultural identity. And maybe sometimes we take it for granted. That people know of the history of the cultural, but to our political actor is a big major step.
Wow. Yeah, and I love it how this very different all of your strategies are. But before I expand on this, we have about 50, no more than 15 minutes left. And I wanted to ask you guys. By the way, this is all in the name of improvising, folks. So play along, okay? So what I'd like to do is to have, if each of you to ask a quick question of one of your fellow panelists, what would that be? Just a quick, crisp question and a quick, crisp answer. Before we go there, so as you think about the question that you would like to ask, I will say this: that in all your strategies, there's an element of collaboration, the importance of human capital, how indispensable it is to have the groundwork going, and that four-letter word, relationships. Right? You gotta, and in all of these strategies, there is no shortcut. You got to spend time, and yes, they oftentimes cost more than anyone would like to admit. So with those that overarching approach to these strategies, we can then start this little exercise that we just made up, where it would be, if I can ask Ives, if you could ask a question of one of the panelists, what would it be?
Well, like a question I had, and anyone again can answer, but at least this is the way that I'm thinking about it. Like at least from the Puerto Rican perspective, we have worked with businesses, but also like nonprofits. So it's very much about commercial space, and I'm trying to have like ownership over that commercial space as a way to maintain the community in place, and also trying to build housing so that people are able to stay in the community, those like business owners. So I just wanted to maybe pose the question to everyone, like how much is it about, commercial specific strategies, and how that plays with housing.
Wow, excellent question. Others, any comments on that?
I don't have an answer, but I will just say we're grappling with the same thing, and our efforts along the Purple Line corridor include small business is a piece of it, and we have a really robust affordable housing strategy and a really potent group of players who are working on our affordable housing efforts. And I worry sometimes that those things could come in conflict with each other, and this is something that we have talked about, but just that the development visions, it's so difficult to just get an affordable housing project off the ground. When you raise this question in housing spaces, it's a little bit overwhelming. But I would be interested to know, because these are conversations we're having now, how communities might be harnessing the capacity and expertise of the housing advocates to help drive small business preservation goals too, because the goals go hand in hand. And if you look at the street vendors on the Purple Line corridor, we've talked about what the policies would be to support the street vendors to stay in. Its housing policy. That's really the first number one thing. You need to have strong housing policy for the street vendors to continue operating, and the same is true for the businesses, and then vice versa. People will want to stay in their community. Cultural displacement is a huge issue when you're talking about the small businesses, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but we are working on, that's my current thinking anyways. How do we harness the capacity of housing advocates to really think more broadly about anti-displacement
Thank you, and we have some amazing questions also in the chat, and folks. I mean, this is everything happens for a reason, and wow, this is quite an experiment on how to improvise. I want to thank the amazing panelists here, Colin, Sheila, Carrie, Ivis. I mean, what spirit of what you guys are putting forth, and to everyone that joined us. Actually, it's when you'll be able to see the video of their presentation, and now, come think about it. Now that those videos are going to make a lot more sense to you. Now that you've heard the protagonist present what, on a very personal note, where they are coming from, and also really encourage you during the rest of the day today in the conference and tomorrow. There are ways to connect and network with others. So please be in there, and to everyone else, thank you so much for joining us. And we have a little break here before 12-minute break or so before our lunch speaker. And remember, you have that Uber Eats. I don't know if they can deliver within the 12 minutes. So thank you so much, everyone. And I think that's it for us. Adios.